Hello, I'm David Pachuto, the Drunken Woodworker, and today I'm going to show you how to make these little wooden rings. Basically, all you need is some veneer, some CA glue, an X-Acto knife to cut the veneers to shape, and that's it. There are other tools that will make the process a little bit easier, and we'll cover that later on in this video. Basically, how it's going to work is we're going to cut some strips out of the veneers. Even though the veneers are very thin, we need to soak them in warm water for an hour, and that makes them even more pliable because we can only bend this so far before it starts to crack. We're going to use a little template. We'll roll the veneer around this, bonding it with CA glue. Now these rings, they're extremely strong. I can't even bend this one with my fingers here. You're going to want some veneers with some very straight grain. A burl veneer is not going to work for this. It's going to tear and chip as you're making it. Another reason you want straight grain veneer is so you don't see the seam. It just kind of blends into itself. Let's get started and let me show you how I make them. First thing we need to do is cut some strips from the veneers. You'll want to cut them wider than the finished size. I'm using contrasting species for my ring and cut them to the same width. Using the lowest setting on my stove, I soak them in hot water for 1 hour. This will make the veneers pliable. Now I take out the strips and wipe off the excess water. While wet, we coil the strips as tight as we can. I'm using a drill bit here, but a dowel rod will work just as well. I'm using masking tape to hold the strip in place. Allow them to dry completely in this position for 24 hours. I've tried to speed up the process using a hairdryer, but I find that it doesn't work as well and they don't retain the shape. After a day of drying, the strips now take form. Now you'll need to find a cylinder that matches your ring size. I made this one on the lathe with my girlfriend's ring size on one side and my ring size on the other. If you don't have a lathe, you can use the shaft of a drill bit. I'll post a link in the description for equivalent bit sizes. For two-tone rings, we need to find the length of the inner strip. We want about a 1/2 inch overlap. I cut it to length and sand down the tips to a fine point where the two edges will overlap. Sanding the tips to a fine point will create a seamless transition from one end to the other when gluing. Using my ring template, I wrap the strip around and glue it to itself using CA glue. Hold it in place for 30 seconds while the glue dries. You'll want to be careful and not glue your ring to the template. For the outer strip, I sand down one tip to a fine point. So now we take that tip that we just sanded and attach it to the inner ring. Hold it down for 30 seconds until it dries. Next, we add CA glue to the outer strip and roll the ring onto itself. I like to do this in 1.5 inch increments. Allow it to dry for a few seconds and resume. Continue the process until you've reached just beyond your desired thickness. I wrap a piece of masking tape around the excess to hold it in place and let the ring dry for about 10 minutes or so. I then cut off that excess with an X-Acto knife. And that's the foundation of our ring. Now it's time to sand it to shape. One quick way to sand it is attach it to a cordless drill. Here I just drilled into the end of my template. And now we hand sand the sides to our desired width. Picking up a trick from pen turners, I finished the ring with CA glue by putting a few dabs on a paper towel and wipe it on. Let it dry, sand between coats and repeat a few times. A little bit of wax and the outside is done. To finish the inside, I tape the ring to the end of my template with the inside exposed and repeat the finishing process. If you have a lathe, the sanding and finishing process can be sped up by chucking up the template. I use my detailer to define the edges. And I can make 2 rings out of 1 strip. Sanding and finishing the outside is a quick, easy process on the lathe. And that about wraps it up. If you make these projects, I'd like to see what you guys come up with. You can email me photos of your projects to david@drunkenwoodworker.com. And for Facebook friends, please post pictures on my Facebook page.
To keep up with me, subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, Pinterest, Tumblr, Instagram, and Etsy. And be sure to check out my website at drunkenwoodworker.com.
Hey Kelly, can you come here for a second?
Hey.
Hey babe.
Hey.
Check out these rings that I made.
Oh, nice. Those are
There's
cool.
something I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Will you marry me?
No thanks. Hang on. Thanks. Yeah.